What's good, Cubers? It's your boy Matt, and it's Card of the Week time. This week's Card of the Week is a card by request. Shout out to you, Tom. This one's for you. Let's get started. This week's Card of the Week is the Immortal Sun. For 6 colorless mana, you get a legendary artifact with players can't activate Planeswalker loyalty abilities. And at the beginning of your end step, draw an additional card. And spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And creatures you control get +1/+1. Whew! That's a lot of text. So let me just start by saying this card is good. It's just in a really weird design space. All of these abilities don't really work together, and the question is, can we make those abilities work for different decks inside of Cube? So the first deck most people think about in their cubes, and you should be thinking about it, is your aggro deck. Aggro decks, they want to ramp and kill their opponent quickly, and as a result, their big problem with this card is that 6 mana cost. If the aggro deck is paying 6 for something, they've already lost the game. So the Immortal Sun just does not fit in our aggro decks. But just because it doesn't fit in our aggro decks doesn't mean that it's not cubable. Maybe we can play it in our control decks. But there's a big problem there, and that is that most control decks make heavy use of Planeswalkers. And I don't know if you've read that first line of text. It's going to render your Jace and Elspeth into big paperweights, and that's not what we want either. The control deck would love the drawing cards, it would love the reduced cost, it doesn't really care about that creature line at the bottom either, but that top ability is just a no-go. Control decks rely on walkers, and the Immortal Sun won't let them play their walkers, so the control decks don't want this card. But that's okay, maybe it's a unique archetype kind of card. Maybe a mid-range or ramp deck, maybe even a reanimator deck would want this card. The problem for ramp decks is that when they hit 6 mana, they're gonna wanna play their big threat. And as a result, they don't really care about going wide either, right? You're gonna ramp and drop Carnage Tyrant. You don't really care if it gets +1/+1, and you don't wanna be taking that turn off to play the Immortal Sun and to then play your Carnage Tyrant. That's an extra creature slot you could be filling inside of the ramp deck. And mid-range decks kind of feel the same way, where at turn 6 or 7, they should be turning the corner against the aggro deck. So the Immortal Sun almost becomes a sideboard card for the mid-range deck to drop against control decks. These same problems are also present in our reanimator decks. They don't want to be giving up the 6 slot to play this card. They'd much rather be doing something more proactive by turn 6. They're also going to want to have their fatties in their deck and a whole bunch of removal. They're just not going to have room for the Immortal Sun. Also, there's the distinct possibility that both the ramp deck and the reanimator deck are playing Planeswalkers. I mean, let's be honest, most reanimator decks use cool walkers like Liliana to toss stuff in the yard, or the other Liliana to reanimate them out of the yard. So that's not great for them either. And the ramp decks sometimes use Garruk to help them ramp, or the new Nissa who shakes the world. So as a result, the Planeswalker clause can be relevant in these decks as well. So I think the problem with Immortal Sun in Cube is that it doesn't really have a good home unless you're in a mid-range token deck, so you can take advantage of all of these abilities. But even then, you're probably still playing walkers to help make those tokens. So, yep, let's skip to the rating, shall we? The Immortal Sun is a really interesting card, and it would be very playable in like an EDH cube. The problem for us is we just can't seem to find the deck for it, and the card is $12 to boot. I'm not saying it's a bad card, it's just that in the average cube, it doesn't have a home, and as a result, it's a C-. Again, it's not a bad card, it's not a do not play, and if you're just getting your cube started out and you've got one laying around and you want to slot it in, you can give it a try. But I think in your traditional cube, the Immortal Sun just doesn't have a place, and that most of the time it either hangs around at the end of the draft, or it's that card that gets cut out of the deck as you're trying to get it down to 40. Well, that's gonna do it for today, Cubers. Thanks for tuning in to Card of the Week. If you've got a card you want us to cover for Card of the Week, Drop us a line down in the comments below and we'll take a look at it. Be sure to follow us on the Twitter at cubefortwo. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things, and as always, and until next time, shuffle up and keep cubing, my friends.